My name is Aisha Khan, and this is my story. I was born in a small town where dreams were often too big for the walls that surrounded us. My parents were hardworking, strict, and deeply practical. They believed in survival, not ambition. My father worked long hours at a local office, while my mother managed the home with discipline and silence. Growing up, I was the quiet one, the girl who loved her books more than anything else. While other children played outside, I sat by the window with a notebook, scribbling ideas and imagining a bigger world than the one around me. From an early age, I was told to focus on real things, getting good grades, finding a steady job, and not reaching too high. But in my heart, I always believed education was my way out. It was supposed to be a normal evening, a night filled with laughter and casual conversation, but instead it became the moment that broke me. I was at a gathering with friends and acquaintances, trying to carry myself with confidence, even though inside I was already struggling with rejection letters and silent doubts. People were sharing their stories, their jobs, their successes, and when it came to me, I mentioned my degree. I thought maybe, just maybe, someone would respect the years I had poured into it. But then he spoke. The man who thought he was smarter, stronger, and far above me. With a smirk on his face, he said, "That degree? It's useless, just like you." The room erupted in laughter. Not the kind of laughter that warms your heart, but the kind that stabs it. I froze, my lips trying to form a smile so I wouldn't look weak, but my chest burned. His words were sharp, his laugh louder than the rest, and though the evening moved on, I couldn't. That laugh stuck in my head. Even when I went home, even when I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his voice echoed in my mind. Days passed, but the wound remained open. I would look at my framed degree on the wall, once a symbol of my hard work, and now it felt like nothing but a piece of paper, powerless and meaningless. I started to wonder if maybe he was right. My confidence, which was already fragile, crumbled. Every rejection email that landed in my inbox felt heavier, as if the universe itself was agreeing with him. My parents' disappointment added more weight to my heart. They didn't have to say much. The look in their eyes said enough. I felt small, invisible, and ashamed. Nights became longer and darker. I tossed and turned, staring at the clock as the hours slipped away, my thoughts circling the same painful loop. What if I really am useless? My room became messy. Papers scattered everywhere, cups of cold coffee sitting untouched, the chaos outside matching the storm inside me. I cried quietly, making sure no one heard, because I didn't want to give anyone more reason to laugh at me. But somewhere between the tears and the silence, a spark began to form. The more I replayed his words, the more they shifted from breaking me to fueling me. I thought, if my degree is useless, then I'll create something that makes me unstoppable. I will not just prove him wrong, I will prove everyone wrong. I started writing down ideas, opening my laptop again, staring at the blank screen with fire instead of fear. I promised myself that one day, the same people who laughed at me would have no choice but to watch me rise. And as I sat there that night, with tears still on my face but determination in my heart, I realized something. This was no longer about proving my degree mattered. This was about proving that I mattered. That was the night I silently declared war, not with anger, but with ambition. And though he didn't know it, that man had just created his own downfall. After that night, life did not suddenly become easier. It became heavier. His voice lived in my head like an unwanted echo, and no matter what I did, I couldn't silence it. I woke up each morning with a pit in my stomach, already tired before the day began. My degree certificate, once my pride, now felt like a cruel reminder. It hung on my wall, but instead of making me smile, it made me question everything. I would stare at it and hear his laugh again, the word useless ringing louder than any memory of my hard work. Rejection letters kept arriving in my inbox, some polite, some blunt, but all of them said the same thing. You're not good enough. With every rejection, his words grew stronger, almost as if life itself was proving him right. My parents' faces didn't help either. They never shouted, but the silence, the sighs, and the way they avoided talking about my future hurt more than anger would have. I could almost hear them thinking, maybe he was right. Maybe she wasted her time. That thought broke me the most. For weeks, I sank into doubt. My room grew messy, my days blurred together, and my nights became endless. I would lie in bed, wide awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling and wondering why I even tried. My friends were moving ahead, posting pictures of their new jobs, their travels, their achievements, while I was stuck, suffocating under the weight of failure. Sometimes I didn't even want to get out of bed. I felt like a ghost inside my own life, invisible and forgotten. But slowly, something began to shift. It wasn't hope, not yet. It was anger. Quiet, steady anger. Anger at him, anger at my parents' doubt, anger at myself for believing I was worthless. One night, after tearing yet another rejection letter in half, I whispered one word. Enough. That word echoed louder in my heart than his mocking laugh. The next morning, I forced myself out of bed, not to cry, but to think. I opened a notebook and began to write. Not essays or assignments this time, but ideas. Wild ideas, crazy ideas, business ideas that made no sense at first. Page after page, I filled with thoughts about what I could build, how I could use what I had learned, even if the world didn't believe in me. The more I wrote, the more the fire inside me grew. I started reading again, not for exams, but to learn for myself. I watched videos about entrepreneurs, read stories of people who started from nothing, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of possibility. Doubt was still there, but now it was mixed with determination. I told myself, they can laugh at me today, but tomorrow they will see me standing taller than all of them. That night, as I closed my notebook with shaky hands, I felt it clearly. The old Aisha was gone. A new version of me was being born, one who would not bow to mockery, but would rise because of it. Starting again was not easy. After weeks of feeling broken, I had promised myself to rise. But promises are not magic. They don't turn life around in a single day. The climb was brutal. I woke up earlier than before, forcing myself to leave the bed even when my body begged me to stay under the covers. I sat at my desk, notebook open, laptop glowing, and began searching for opportunities. Not just jobs, but any small way I could start learning and building something of my own. Every click, every application, every idea felt like a step up a steep mountain. Some days I was motivated, other days I cried in frustration, but I kept moving. I applied for internships, even the ones that paid nothing. I volunteered for projects, hoping to gain experience and make connections. Most people ignored me, some rejected me, and a few even laughed when I spoke about my dreams. But this time, instead of breaking me, their rejection lit a fire inside me. I told myself, every no I hear is just one step closer to the yes I need. It wasn't glamorous. I worked in small offices doing tasks no one else wanted. I stayed late, studied new skills online, and practiced everything I could. At night, while others rested, I kept building my knowledge brick by brick. It was exhausting. My hands ached from typing, my eyes burned from staring at screens, and my heart often doubted whether it was worth it. But whenever I felt weak, I remembered his mocking words. His voice, once my prison, became my weapon. I thought, If he could stand there and laugh at me, then one day I will stand taller and make sure he never laughs again. That thought kept me moving when nothing else could. Small wins began to appear. A project I worked on received praise. A manager noticed my effort. A client liked my ideas. These were tiny victories, invisible to the world, but to me, they were proof. Proof that I wasn't useless, that my degree wasn't worthless, that I had something to offer. Every click, every application, every idea felt like a step up a steep mountain. Some days I was motivated. Other days I cried in frustration. But I kept moving. My parents still didn't fully believe in me, but they started to notice the change. Instead of pitying me, they saw me working, fighting, refusing to give up. But let me be honest, the climb wasn't just about skill. It was about survival. I skipped meals to save money, walked long distances instead of taking transport, and often sat in cold, empty rooms with nothing but determination to keep me warm. The climb tested me in every way, but it also shaped me. With each rejection, I grew tougher. With each late night, I grew sharper. I was no longer the girl who cried over insults. I was becoming the woman who used them as fuel. And though the world still saw me as small, I knew in my heart that my climb had begun. And this climb, no matter how brutal, was only leading me higher. The climb was hard, but what came next was harder. The doors. I thought effort alone would open them, that if I worked day and night, someone would see my worth. But reality was cruel. I knocked on so many doors, and one after another, they slammed in my face. Companies told me I lacked experience. Employers said my degree was not practical. Some smiled politely, but I could see the doubt in their eyes. To them, I was just another girl with dreams too big for her place. Every rejection felt like a slap, reminding me of his laughter. At times, I walked home with my shoulders heavy, holding back tears because I didn't want the world to see me broken again. I still remember one particular interview. I had prepared for days, memorized answers, researched everything about the company. I walked in with hope, but before I even finished speaking, the interviewer looked bored. He said, "We're looking for someone with real experience, not just a degree." His words cut deep. I walked out of that office holding my resume like it was trash. On the way home, I wanted to scream. I had given everything, yet it was never enough. Money became another wall. Bills piled up, and I had to choose between paying rent or eating properly. I took small side jobs, tutoring, typing work, even cleaning, just to keep myself afloat. Sometimes I skipped meals. Sometimes I worked until my hands shook from exhaustion. And still, opportunities didn't come. Friends who once stood beside me drifted away. They didn't mean to hurt me, but their success made my failure shine brighter. Their invitations stopped coming. Their calls grew less. Slowly, I was alone. Truly alone. But in that loneliness, I learned something important. I realized that no one was going to hand me success. I would have to build it, piece by piece, from nothing. Each slammed door pushed me to create my own. I began thinking differently. Instead of asking, "Why won't they hire me?" I started asking, "What can I build that they will one day need?" That question kept me alive. I studied harder, learned skills outside my degree, and trained myself in things no one expected me to know. I built small projects, most of them failures, but each one taught me something new. The world saw me as weak, but I was becoming unshakable. I began to accept rejection, not as an end, but as fuel. The more they said no, the more determined I became. I told myself, one day I will not be the girl begging for a chance. One day I will be the one giving chances. And though the doors kept closing, I realized that the world could not keep me out forever. Because I was no longer knocking. I was learning how to build my own doorway. After so many rejections and sleepless nights, I had begun to think success would never come. But then something happened. Something small but powerful enough to change the direction of my journey. I had been working on a side project, a simple business plan I built late at night on my old laptop. I didn't think much of it at first. It was just an idea I wrote to remind myself that I still had a purpose. But one day, I'd gathered my courage and shared it with a small group online. I expected silence or maybe even criticism. Instead, to my surprise, someone responded. A local entrepreneur messaged me and said, "This is interesting. Can you develop it further?" That single message felt like a door cracking open. My hands shook as I typed back, agreeing to meet him. I prepared for days, polishing every detail of my plan, rehearsing every word I would say. When the day came, I walked into the cafe, nervous but determined. I presented my idea with all the passion I had. For the first time, someone didn't laugh, didn't dismiss me, didn't call me useless. He listened. He asked questions. And when the meeting ended, he said, "You have potential. Let's try this on a small scale." That was it. My first yes. It wasn't big money, it wasn't a fancy title, but it was real. I worked day and night on that project, pouring my energy into making it succeed. The pay was small, but the reward was priceless. Belief. For the first time, I saw my work making a difference. I saw someone respect my effort. When the project delivered results, his smile and the words, "Well done," gave me more strength than any paycheck ever could. That little victory changed everything. My parents noticed too. My mother, who once stayed quiet when people asked about me, now looked at me differently. She saw me leaving the house early, coming back late, focused and alive. My father, though still cautious, asked me about my work with genuine interest. Their eyes no longer carried only disappointment. There was a spark of pride, however small, and for me, that was enough to keep going. Of course, problems didn't disappear overnight. I still faced rejection, I still struggled with money, and many nights I still questioned myself. But now, I had proof. Proof that I was not useless. Proof that if I kept pushing, more victories would come. That first project became my seed, and I treated it like gold. I knew it wasn't the end, it was only the beginning. Looking back, I realized that it wasn't the size of the victory that mattered. It was the shift it created inside me. From that day on, I no longer carried his words as a weight. I carried them as fuel, because now I knew if I could win once, I could win again. And soon the world that shut me out would have no choice but to let me in. That first project gave me something far more valuable than money: confidence. It showed me that I could create, that I could solve problems, and that people would listen. After that, I promised myself I would never go back to being the girl who doubted her own worth. Instead, I would build something so big that no one could ever mock me again. I started small. I used the little money I earned from my first project to buy better tools for my work. I spent nights watching tutorials, reading books, and learning skills online that I couldn't afford to study in expensive universities. My laptop became my classroom, and my failures became my teachers. I tried, I fell, I adjusted, and I tried again. Slowly, my ideas became sharper, my work stronger, and my confidence deeper. Soon, I realized that I could not do everything alone. To grow, I needed people who believed in me. But who would trust a girl with no fancy background, no rich parents, no powerful surname? I knew it would be hard, yet I also knew I had one thing stronger than all of that: vision. I shared my dream with a few people I met through online groups, other young strugglers, dreamers like me. We started working together, helping each other, and slowly forming a small team. The first months were rough. We worked in my tiny apartment, sitting on the floor with notebooks and cheap coffee. We didn't have an office, we didn't have investors, but we had hunger. Every rejection we faced only made us tougher. When people said, "You're wasting your time," we reminded ourselves, great things always look impossible until they're done. Step by step, the world began to notice. A small client became a bigger client. A short project became a long-term contract. My team grew from 2 people to 5, then to 10. We rented a small office, nothing fancy, but to me it felt like a palace. Walking into that room filled with people who trusted my leadership was the first taste of what an empire could be. But it wasn't just about money or size. It was about impact. I wanted to build something that solved real problems, something that made life easier for people. And the more we delivered, the more opportunities came our way. Every success reminded me of the days when I was mocked for my degree, when I was told I had no future. Now, every new client, every achievement felt like a piece of revenge, silent, cold, and powerful. Yes, we struggled. Yes, we stumbled, but we never stopped. With every small win, my empire took shape. And as it grew, so did my determination, because deep down, I wasn't just building a company. I was building proof. Proof that the girl they once called useless could rise higher than they ever imagined. And one day, my empire would stand tall enough for the whole world to see, including him. The day I had been waiting for finally came, though I didn't expect it to arrive so perfectly. By now, my company was strong, respected, and growing fast. We had important clients, big projects, and a reputation that people admired. I had gone from being ignored to being invited, from being mocked to being praised. But deep inside, I knew my journey would not feel complete until I faced him, the man who once laughed at my degree and called me useless. It happened on an ordinary morning. My assistant walked into my office and said, "There's a potential client here to see you. He's from one of the partner firms we've been in talks with." I nodded, preparing myself like I always did. But when I stepped into the meeting room, my breath caught. There he was, the same man who had once humiliated me, sitting nervously in a chair, waiting to meet me. At first, he didn't recognize me. He looked through his papers, cleared his throat, and tried to act confident. But the moment I introduced myself, his eyes widened. I could see the shock all over his face. He blinked twice, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. The girl he once mocked was now the woman he had to impress. For a moment, silence filled the room. I could feel the power shift between us. Years ago, I had been the nervous one, desperate for approval. Now, it was him sitting small in front of me, trying to hide his discomfort. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to insult him. My success was louder than any words. The meeting continued, and I kept my voice calm, professional, and sharp. Every time he tried to explain himself, I noticed the hesitation in his tone. He knew who I was. He remembered what he had said. And now, he had no choice but to treat me with respect. The sweetest part? His boss, the man who had sent him, was one of my direct clients, which meant, in a way, that his work now depended on me. As I looked across the table, I thought of all the nights I had cried, all the days I had doubted myself, and all the times his cruel words had replayed in my head. And now, here I was, not broken, not defeated, but stronger than ever. My revenge wasn't in insulting him back. My revenge was in showing him that the person he once thought was worthless now stood above him. When the meeting ended, I smiled politely and shook his hand. His grip was weak. His eyes avoided mine. And that was enough. I didn't need to remind him of his cruelty. He already knew. Walking back to my office, I felt lighter than I had in years. The battle was over. My revenge was complete. Not fiery or loud, but cold, calm, and unforgettable. After that day, after seeing the man who once mocked me sit nervously across from me, I realized something very important. Revenge is not always about shouting or hurting someone back. True revenge is living in such a way that your success becomes the answer to every insult, every doubt, every cruel word ever spoken to you. When I was younger, I thought his words defined me. I believed that because I had a simple degree, because I didn't have powerful connections, I was truly useless. But life showed me something different. It showed me that no degree, no background, no single moment can decide your future, unless you allow it to. What truly matters is how much you are willing to fight for yourself, how much you are willing to learn, and how strongly you believe that you are worth more than other people's opinions. Looking back, I don't hate him anymore. In fact, in some strange way, I thank him. His mockery was painful, but it was also fuel. Every time I remembered his laughter, every time I remembered his cruel words, I worked harder. His attempt to break me ended up building me. Without knowing it, he pushed me into becoming stronger, sharper, and unstoppable. My empire didn't grow overnight. It grew from long nights, silent tears, and endless effort. It grew because I refused to give up. And that's the truth I want everyone to remember. No one can write your story for you. People will try, they will judge, they will laugh, they will call you names. But the pen is always in your hand. Today, when I stand in my office, surrounded by a team of people who trust me, I see more than success. I see freedom. Freedom from doubt, freedom from fear, freedom from the chains of other people's opinions. My parents, who once looked at me with disappointment, now look at me with pride. My mother tells relatives about my company. My father introduces me as my daughter, the business owner. The same girl who was once useless now became the one who carries the family name with honor. And the man who mocked me? He became just a shadow in my story. Important once, but powerless now. Because the truth is, the sweetest revenge is not about him at all. It is about me, choosing to rise, choosing to fight, and choosing to win. So, if you are listening to my story and you have ever been called useless or weak or worthless, remember this. Those words do not belong to you. Leave them with the people who spoke them. Build your own truth. Build your own empire. And one day, just like me, you will walk into a room and the very people who doubted you will have no choice but to respect you. That is the real revenge. When I look back at my life now, I don't only see the pain or the insults. I see the long road I walked, step by step, from being called useless to becoming a leader. I see the nights of silence, the mornings of doubt, the tears that fell on my notebook while I wrote plans that seemed impossible. I see the girl who almost gave up and the woman who chose not to. That choice, that single decision to keep going, was my real victory. For a long time, I thought my success was about proving others wrong. I wanted to show the world that the girl they laughed at could rise higher than anyone expected. And yes, when it finally happened, when the man who mocked me sat nervously in front of me, I felt the sweetness of revenge. But over time, I realized something even more powerful. My success was never about him. It was about me. Because the truth is, people will always have opinions. They will call you names, they will doubt your skills, they will try to put you in a box. If I had lived my whole life trying to answer them, I would still be stuck in the same place. But the moment I shifted my focus from fighting their words to building my own life, I began to win. That is the lesson I carry now, and the lesson I want to share with anyone who feels broken. Don't waste your energy proving them wrong. Use that energy to prove yourself right. Today, my empire stands tall. I walk into meetings with confidence. I employ people, I sign deals, and I see my name on contracts that once felt out of reach. My parents no longer call me useless. Instead, they introduce me as their pride. The same family that once doubted me now celebrates me. That change is not just my victory, it is their lesson too. And when I see young women or men starting their journeys, struggling with the same doubts I once had, I remind them it doesn't matter if they mock your degree, your dreams, or your background. What matters is how much fight you have inside. If your dream is strong enough, it will carry you through the storms. In the end, the greatest revenge is not making someone else bow to you. The greatest revenge is standing so high that you no longer care who once tried to hold you down. My story began with pain, but it ends with freedom. Freedom from doubt, freedom from fear, from every voice that told me I couldn't. That is my true victory. And if you're listening, I want you to remember, your story isn't over. You hold the pen. Write it boldly, write it your way, and let your success become the answer to every voice that ever tried to silence you.